Ladies and gentlemen, Africa in general is an emerging market. Some people say that the next decade will be of African business, while Dubai provides the perfect gateway to Africa. And to know more about opportunities in Africa, we welcome our African delegates along with Mr. Sirish Patwardhan and Jayant Deshpande, as well as Mr. Rakesh Patil, who shall represent Indian businessmen in UAE. Ladies and gentlemen, the moderator of this session is Mrs. Fayomi Yinka, a pioneer staff and former director of Nigerian Investment Promotion Commission, that is NIPC, has held various positions around the world, including joining the Nigerian National Vision 2020 team and participating as a juror on the BBC World Challenge and serving as a governor of Brent Council in the UK. Her interest in global affairs has taken Yinka to over 80 countries. With over 30 years working experience with various multinational concerns on development projects in different countries, with study trips to over 80 countries, she has promoted financing of oil and gas assets and also facilitated investments to some African countries. Please, even if you don't have businesses in Africa, I'm going to please request you all to kindly explore the opportunities in Africa, since they say the next decade will be the decade for the Africans. Ladies and gentlemen, may we please give it up for the lovely lady, Mrs. Fayomi, and our panelists are Sirish Patwardhan, Jayant Deshpande, Rakesh Patil, as well as our lovely friends and dignitaries who've joined us from Africa. Thank you very much. Fayomi to kindly take over. Is Fayomi here, sir? Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. For those who are wondering about whether my name is Mrs. Fayomi, my name is not Mrs. Fayomi. My name is Ebele Okeke. Unfortunately, she couldn't be here today, so I'm representing her, and I shall be moderating the panel. Just by way of introduction, I think this panel is likely to be probably one of the more interesting and exciting sessions that you will see today. Everybody's business, if you're in business today, whatever you're doing, whether you're in retail, whether you're in transportation, logistics, manufacturing, your business is likely to be directly or indirectly affected by Africa. Just my business, Altica Partners, it's a Dubai-based, Africa-focused investment firm, and we help a lot of the GCC investors who are looking at Africa to make smart investments in the continent. We also invest into fast-growing African businesses. We invest ticket sizes between $3 to $25 million across multiple sectors in businesses in Africa. So I'd like to welcome all my panelists on board, and I'll have each of them start with briefly introducing themselves and what they do, and then we'll go on to talking about a series of questions.
Yinka, who's joined us here, Mr. Anthony Yinka. Anthony, you want to come the other side so that... Absolutely, we have all of you in the center. Thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you.
I'm Mr. Anthony Denga, from President and founder of African Grain and Seed.
I'm Shirish Patwardhan. I represent RKME International. We are professionally managed raw material for going into various verticals, which includes coatings, plastics, personal care, cosmetics, construction, and specialty oils for transformers, white oils for various different uses, and so on and so forth. Also, we do have manufacturing of specialty additives and car coolants, brake fluids, and so on. I'm delighted to be here in front of you, and whatever will be my contribution, you are most welcome to ask.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jayan Deshpande. I head the Samsotech group of companies. First of all, thank you very much to GmbF for giving us this opportunity to share our ideas. We started our company in Dubai, and presently, we have our installations systems in over 135 countries in the world. We are present in 38 out of 54 countries in Africa. That's my introduction. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Rakesh Patil. Thank you, GmbF, for giving us this opportunity to be on this panel. Little about myself. I started after initial career in India. I lived in Africa, in Nigeria, basically for 3 years. There I saw the opportunity, the potential of African market. Then I decided to start my own business. And then I moved to Dubai in 2004. So, and since then we are supplying machineries, industrial machineries to African countries, basically East and West Africa. We cover almost 34, 35 countries there. And 70% of our exports or business is from African market at the moment. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Grace MahaBiz. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be part of this panel. Briefly, I am a lawyer, entrepreneur, and an advisor. I'm representing LMG Management, and basically what we do is we help people and companies set up projects and businesses in Africa and other emerging economies. I also have, I'm also a partner in an engineering company which is based in Ghana and Ivory Coast. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grace. So I think maybe Grace will start with you and have all the other panel members answer this key question. What do you see as the current key opportunities in Africa at the moment? And what are the most interesting sectors that you think members of the audience should be paying attention to?
Okay. Currently, what I've been advising a lot of companies is to look in the solar industry in Africa. So right now, I believe that Africa is prime for investment. But how do you enter that market? With electrification of countries being very important, a lot of African countries have, what do we have? A lot of sun. But you have a lot of countries that also suffer from problems with powering the nation, which affects so many other aspects of the communities, meaning the schools, the universities, the hospitals, if you don't have this. So I believe that a big investment opportunity in Africa has to do with sustainability and solar energy. This is where the next wave is coming. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. I think that's very topical right now with global warming. We're seeing a lot of initiatives trying to target climate change. Rakesh, you wanted to?
Yes. My view is in Africa, due to lack of some resources, a lot of trade is happening, a lot of import is happening. So there's huge potential in local manufacturing, which most of the African countries are now promoting, giving some incentives. Government is doing pro-manufacturing policies. So that's why we started supplying machineries to African continent. And with my experience, I have seen some companies who started in 2005 with, let's say, 1 or 5 machines. They are doing now turnover in billions or multi-millions, I would say. So there is huge potential in manufacturing, and I suggest to look into that field in African market. Yeah.
Hello. Africa is a large continent, and also population is increasing, so there are enough and more opportunities. We started in Dubai in 2007, and immediately we had this financial crisis. So we started to develop our business in the Middle East. and slowly we started developing our business in Africa. What I would recommend each one of you if you want to develop your businesses in Africa, is to analyze your own competitive strengths in that market. What is that you can add value to African segment or African market, whichever. So confined to your domain expertise, find out a niche market that you can address rather than you going in trying to address every type of market. So whatever market you are now, maybe in India, maybe in the Middle East, find out your niche where you can penetrate African market and consolidate your presence in Africa. Thank you.
Hello. In terms of African investment, at this stage, I'd say Africa is completely open for a lot of transactions. Now, this like our other panelists has put forward, needs a bit of consulting, but you have to identify which area in which you want to focus on. Now, as an African who has invested personally into African countries, you'll realize that the products that you already are used to, Africa will most probably adapt to and will respond, and this will give your investments a higher capital, let's say, uptake from what you do in your own countries. Because we have untapped human resources, but also the market. Africa is a big market. We are, I think, the largest growing market at present. So whatever field you decide to look at, be it in food sustainability, energy sustainability, and of course in infrastructure, you have a big table to play with. Thank you.
Yeah, Africa. Africa is definitely a region where Dubai, as a biggest trading hub in this part of the world, always look for. Every fellow businessman, I won't say particularly Indian, but every fellow businessman always has got some or the other way connected to Africa by either supplies or some investments and so on. Many of my very close dear friends has got a lot of investments in Africa in few countries, and I can definitely say in my sector which I work, there is a great scope because Africa is a developing market. The demands are growing, and when it comes to raw material, the demand what they have, slowly the demand will increase to such a level that they will need a infrastructure to manufacture all those items. And that is what Arkemi definitely possess the required technological knowledge and partners and so on. So I look forward for the opportunities with friends next to me. Thank you.
Thanks. I think there are so many common themes here, but one of the themes I picked up on was the population, the size of the markets. When we speak to investors in the GCC specifically, and we explain to them the population growth that's going to happen in Africa over the next 20 to 30 years, I mean, many of them are astounded. If you look at some of the cities in Africa, look at Lagos, for example, in Nigeria, where you have more than 20 million people in one city, which is almost the size of, it's bigger, certainly bigger than many of the populations of many of the countries in the Middle East. So that's one of the things. So I think, in summary, whichever sector that your business is in, there must be opportunities for you to be thinking about right now. And I guess the next question to the panel is, what's in terms of the ease of doing business in Africa, versus the perception versus the reality. You see and you hear, once you tell people about Africa, often some business people are slightly concerned, slightly nervous. What has been your experience in actually activating your business strategy in Africa? bearing in mind that Africa is 54 countries, we're not talking about one country specifically, right? There's a lot of diversity there, and I'd like to ask some of the panelists what their experience has been. Maybe Rakesh, you want to start with that?
Yeah, related to ease of doing business, I would say like West Africa has a community called ECOWAS, Economic Community for West African Countries. Similarly, East African countries have, East African Community, EAS. So within that East and West Africa, they have made business very easy, like free trade. Like recently, India and UAE has done the free trade agreement just yesterday. Similarly, East and West Africa already has this pact. So let's say if you want to start some business, let's say in Kenya, in East Africa, and you can cover entire East Africa and invest, let's say Nigeria, which is one of the developed and more potential in terms of population. So if you start from there, that's what I have done. Then you can cover the whole West Africa and utilize the free trade pact done by ECOWAS and East African Community.
Can I add that? Those are correct in regard to the institutions, but I want to talk a little bit about understanding the link between culture and doing business in Africa. So when you're doing business, and I hate to use the expression in Africa, because like you said, it's so many different countries. How you do business in Kenya and how you do business in Nigeria is going to be very different. So it's very important, the first step is to make sure that you understand the country that you're going into culturally. And secondly, you have to make sure that you have a strategic partner in that country. I know this is not necessarily a topic that people like to address, but Africa is also a continent where it's who you know. You need to know people. So you can go in there and without knowing anybody and then go through all numerous steps and you'll still start a business. Or you can go in there with a correct strategic partner and fast track everything. So this is very important. In addition to the institutions that exist, you have to make sure you have strategic partners on the ground and you understand the culture which you are going to start business in. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. In Africa, like you said, it's a lot of different African countries. So I'll speak from the southern sector, which I've done a lot of my business in. Now, Southern Africa provides you with a challenge, like the rest of Africa. Cultures will differ. This will also play a part in government cultures are different. Political cultures will be different. But that doesn't stop the business, because the market in Africa, like we're saying, is growing. Now, if you intend, and I hope you do, to look at investing or directly boosting your business through these structures, the ease of business in Africa is the governments themselves, firstly, right? The people, secondly, right? And thirdly, the institutions that you're dealing with, because you have to deal through a step-by-step strategy. It's easy to look at Africa as a jungle. That's because most probably you haven't tamed the horse. So if you walk around with the horse long enough, you'll get to understand where that way there's a snake, it will jump, and where it's been cheated before, it will resist. And these are all my own perspectives of doing business in Africa. So the ease of business has become so open because every country wants investment to come in. Every single culture wants a change from no electricity to a lot of electricity. So it plays already to the narrative of welcoming investors into Africa. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead if you...
Actually, I agree with, they have covered everything, but still I will say ease of business has to increase. Simultaneously, you can say protecting and banking with pace of, you can say, class A kind of availability of banking. That's all.
Yeah, I think that feeds nicely into the next question. So there are opportunities. It's not as challenging as it's often made out to be. to do business in Africa. For me, in the financial services sector, the number one question I get from investors or promoters who are going into Africa is about currency risk. You know, if I put my money in, am I sure how am I going to get my money out? Is the value of the money I put in going to be equal to the value I bring out? So currency volatility and currency availability often tends to be one of the most pressing questions that we get to see all the time. And I'd like to invite the other panelists and ask them, you know, what other common challenges are promoters or business people experiencing when they enter Africa? Maybe from your personal experiences back home, or with the few businesses that you have you started in Africa.
Hello. The most difficult question to answer is how to start and which countries you should address. Africa, as everyone knows, has 54 countries. I will tell you what we did. We are primarily addressing IT sector and hospitality, to be more precise. So when we decided to address the market in Africa, we narrowed down to 4 countries to start with, which are more focused on hospitality. First one was Egypt. Egypt has a lot of tourism. Morocco. Third one was South Africa. And fourth one was Kenya. So once you identify which are the potentially larger markets for you, then it is easy for you to address those things. Rather than you focusing on every country and every market segment, decide which market segment and which countries you want to address. Then you become more focused, and then it best is to find right partners there. We could find out resellers or partners where we could trust them, and they could represent us there. So the end user did not feel anything abnormal to deal directly with a company overseas. Rather, they were dealing with a partner which is in their own country. I think I would suggest that the best way to expand or enter into, most people have this challenge, how to enter a new market, how to enter, maybe it's Kenya or Nigeria, whichever. They do not know, so best is to find out which a right partner and then enter into that market. That way your chances of succeeding are much higher than otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to?
So regarding the financing, one of the key things is it depends on what kind of investment you're trying to make in Africa. So if it's just maybe a businessman wanting to start maybe selling something, then you look for a distribution. But I'm going to answer regarding bigger projects, okay? In regard to this, it's very important to identify what are the priority projects in the country you're going into. Because if it's a priority project, the government most likely has received funding from World Bank or IMF or some other institution for this project. And usually you can find some kind of system to make sure that your project gets funding, whether you do it through a BOT or a PPP or whatever kind of legal structure you want to set up for the funding. Sometimes people also get country guarantees and they go to Exim banks for funding. So when you are doing an investment, one, is the investment a priority for the government? If it is far easier to finance those projects than a project that no one really is interested in. So that's one avenue.
Thank you. I think I want to pose the next question to both of you gentlemen. I think Anthony mentioned something around the diversity in Africa, and you're dealing with multiple different countries, different cultures, different ways of doing business, different objectives from different governments and so on. I want to just ask about some of the cultural differences or cultural aspects that investors should be taking into mind when they are doing business in certain African countries that may not be sort of apparent to an outsider when they're coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. With my limited knowledge for few countries of Africa, I will say that why don't I pass this to Mr. Jayant, who has got 38 countries covered with, where I got very limited this thing. But I will say I was always been happy dealing with African countries because number one, they are quality conscious when it comes to using raw material. And secondly, it's a definitely growing market. But Mr. Deshpande, I think you should address this more than me.
Do you want to take that, Mr. Jayant or Rakesh, any of you?
Regarding
the cultural differences.
Yeah, I think culture is very important. Let me give you an example. When we were dealing with American companies, Americans normally trust you very fast. If you check in Asia Pacific, they take much longer time to trust you. There is so in Africa, I think it's important that you must appreciate all the cultures. No culture is, like every culture, once you start enjoying the culture, you will love that, you will like it. So once you start liking the culture, you start trusting them, they start trusting you. I think that is very important to build a long-term relationship with every customer, and it can happen only after you start appreciating their culture and understanding that they come from a different environment, different backgrounds than what you have come up or you have been grown up. And once you start appreciating the culture of everyone, you start building good relationship with everyone, and that helps you to do business. Thank you.
So, go ahead.
Okay,
if you want
thank
to
you.
answer that.
Okay, so culturally, the diversity of Africa is not a hindrance, firstly, yes. Right? It's more or less like it's complementary, because of our different cultures constantly. If Indian business came into Africa, we have room for acceptance of the culture, because our own culture is so diverse right across the river. So it's not like it's the borders that separate us as Africa. But as an investment destination, I'd agree completely with the gentleman who just spoke now, that the minute you are open or acceptant to the different cultures and the different regions in which you are intending to do the investment in, right, you'll realize that they will most probably welcome you more, because your culture is most probably at a differently advanced level, right, than our own. And it's not that anything's bad about our own culture, but or anything is worse than your existing culture. But it's the meeting of the cultures that usually makes Africa seem much more homely. We are taught to grow up expecting different cultures to come in. Thank you.
So I think there might be some members of the audience who are listening to us and thinking, why should I bother with Africa now? My business is doing well. I'm doing well in Dubai or in India and so on. I would think about Africa later, right? It's not priority number one right now. And one question I want to ask my fellow panelists is, why should investors and business people listening to us now start right now looking at Africa, right? Why should they start activating their Africa strategy as opposed to postponing it, in years to come?
This respect, I would like to say Africa is a continent with 50+ countries and 1.3 billion population. So there is mass market and huge potential. That Africa is, like they say, Africa is the future. That is why I would recommend and ask all the entrepreneurs or the established business players to invest in Africa and target Africa as a potential market. Set up the base, either it can be trading or manufacturing, but that's a potential market because considering the population and the requirement of the continent.
Want to take that, anyone?
Yes. My answer to that is as simple as Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola is everywhere. But in Africa, we drank as much more than anywhere else in the world. So it just goes to show that as long as you are looking at focusing yourself on growth, being in Africa now is the only answer. Being in Africa now, I'm sure you might be waiting to see the trends of the politics, the trends of COVID, but that's not going to change Coca-Cola. We are a consuming continent. We will consume anything, technology, tech, education. We are consuming and producing. So Africa is Coca-Cola now, Pepsi. Let me put it that way.
I think also it's a very youthful population. So there's a lot of youth. I think in Ghana we have a figure of something like 70% or something of the population is under 50. I mean, it's a huge youthful population. I know these are the similar figures in other countries. So in regard to any business expanding and making sure that you have the workforce, this is another bonus for investment on the continent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Grace. And linking, in terms of the practical aspects of doing business in all these countries, regulation and the role of government is very important, right? So, one of the things that business people need is an enabling environment for them to come in, open a business, get the licenses, get their staff in. A question I want to ask, maybe starting with you, Rakesh, because you've been there on the ground, is, how can investors and promoters, mitigate against some of the risks that regulation poses, and what practical steps should they be taking when, setting up their business in a specific country and making sure that they are in touch with what the rules are and they abide by the rules to ensure that their businesses thrive and are not caught out by any regulatory challenges.
Okay, I would like to notify two challenges in Africa. One is the political instability and currency fluctuation. Apart from that, the major role which everybody should consider and look into is the government policies. I'll give you an example. Like, I would not name the country. One of the country overnight banned the plastic polybags. Since I'm into plastics, I know hundreds of companies which overnight they had to shut down because it was a total ban. There was no time frame given to them. So that's why it is very important to either study or see the forecast of the government, their policies, the upcoming policies before entering into the market, and then you can strategize your business accordingly.
You want to take that?
Hi. You should also consider the taxation. Many countries have signed up with the UAE regarding the avoiding double taxation. So you should make sure that you are aware of the taxation so that you don't, that when you are getting the money back, there is no withholding tax. All those things, formalities. We have done business with almost 38 countries in Africa. We did not notice any country having withholding taxes. That is one. Second thing is that maybe some countries have very, very specific legal documentation that need to be done. Without that, even if it is a $1 shipment, it gets stuck. So make sure that you are familiar with all the legal documentation. This is only for some 1 or 2 countries only. Otherwise, we did not see any government regulations that there are no import, unless what he has recently observed about polymers. But generally, we did not see any import restrictions for IT-related products in any of the country, either import or export-related restrictions for our type of business. Thanks.
Yeah, you want to contribute to that?
Actually, when we say ease of business, we expect that clarity into all the norms required for environment, required by government, quality assurances at its place, and so on and so forth is expected. And as I expect that slowly but steadily, Africa, entire region, will place it as per the norms given by government directives. And more we will be conducive to have much investment done in terms of manufacturing with the raw material locally available. Especially Africa, few countries I observed are very rich into minerals and like cobalt and so on. So look forward for that.
Thank you. I think we're running out of time. It's the last question would be around strategic partnerships. So in many, there are different models of entering a new region or a new country. In some countries, there is a model of, having a local partner versus, you coming in and trying to set up the business on your own. We're all here, we're meeting new people, we're networking. I just want to get the final opinions of my panel members around partnerships, about potentially working with Africans to do Africa, as opposed to you doing it on your own with your own people. What's better, and what are the different kind of practices and best practices that one should bear in mind? Maybe Grace, you want to start with that?
I think partnership is very, very important and integral to doing any kind of business in specifically Africa. But I would also add, you need to make sure you do your due diligence. You do some research on who you're partnering with, what is their track record, do they have the ability to make whatever project or investment you're trying to do on the continent viable. So yes, partnership is important, and also making sure that you find the right partner.
Anthony, any comments on that?
Yes, partnerships are crucial, especially for an onward-looking investment into Africa. I would always say it's important to meet someone who could be on the ground for the meetings you can't attend. Because at the end of the day, representation is key. Because they're going to represent the bigger business that wants to see itself in Africa. Now, in my case, I'll speak for Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe being a land-linked opportunity country sitting in the center of Southern Africa, if you don't have a Zimbabwean, who is in Zimbabwe, right? You already are running this race with one leg tied behind you to the next leg, really going nowhere. So it's important to partner with Africans who can either go into other African countries on your behalf for the same business and sit down and discuss opportunities with your governments. Thank you.
Thanks. I think we've run out of time. In case any questions,
Sure.
we're all available around for
We can always
for
network,
questions.
because we just have the last session.
yeah.
So all our
So I just want
panelists and our moderators here with us, please feel free to ask them any questions you have in your mind right after this last session. So I'm going to take this wondrous opportunity of thanking all of you. Thank you so much. To do the honors, may I please request Mr. Dilawar and Mr. Vivek to kindly present a token of love, our mementos to all our panelists, while I'm going to request all of you all to kindly step forward for a group photo op, please. Thank you so much for giving us the right insights of what investing in Africa is all about and what partnerships are all about to grow well. So I'm going to request you all to come ahead of the tables so that we have a good photo op, please. Everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and thank you, sir, for doing the honors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have some very important announcements to be made. Yes, of course, we have the session of the day, the panel discussion, to be moderated by our very own President of GMBF Global, Dr. Sunil Manjrekar. But before that, let me make these very important announcements while we simultaneously congratulate them. For all those who are looking forward to getting their RT-PCR test done, in case you're traveling, you need to get your RT-PCR test done, then please do visit stall number 17, that is Real Health, to get your RT-PCR in subsidized rate. You're at MahaBiz 2022. That is stall number 17 for your RT-PCR in subsidized rate. And of course, we look forward to meeting all of you for speedy networking tomorrow in the morning. So for a change,